Hi. I've pulled the camera back to give us so much of the wall in the hope that we'll have some rainbows passing through. I'm just coming in from my morning barefoot coffee session with the sun. Wipe the tears off my face and try to look reasonable here and see what's to be said before I get off into this day, which for me is an unusual one. I have some business and financial dealings to take care of, and I'm not very good about that. I mean, practical things, no, not too useful. Not too useful at all. Uh, kind of a joke, really. I mean, I surrendered a lot in coming into light and finding myself and who and where and what I really wanted. And upon finding and discovering, well, there's a whole lot of that stuff I just didn't pick back up. And so you don't find me a very anchored, practical person. But I'm happy this way. I take things as they come. And you just have to be willing to do that. Um, that's part of being a sovereign being, is to, it's not just that you set things aside like that, but that when consequences appear from that, you welcome them and you don't run away, and you just go on like that. It's very strange. I mean, I still, at this point in my journey, know enough and remember enough about the I that I used to think that I was. And the vague shadow of that looks at this and says, oh my God, who are you? Do I even know you? You know? I mean, there's still that ability to look from the practical perspective, let's put it that way. And from that perspective, I'm a ditz. Oh well, so what? I like it this way. To each his and her own. That's the thing, dear ones. You've got to find your own perfect recipe, find your joy, and then operate from there and do what you will when you will. Only the whole funny thing, of course, is that none of us are who we think we are. And so it's in the discovering of that everything is so amazing. Because, you know, there's a that we are that's nothing like who we thought we were. All those things that seemed or may seem so important, they're nothing. They're chaff in the wind. They're just so nothing. And it's amazing. But I find that just staying in now brings the best benefit, the best blessing. And there's something inside where you're driven to that. I mean, that's all that really is. There's really nothing else. Everything else is a chimera. It's a thought in the head that there's a tomorrow or a future or a 2 hours from now. Be there when you get there. It's all now. It's like Eckhart Tolle does a pretty good job with it. You just think that there's a 1412, to the people then that was now. That's all there is now. There's never been a time when it wasn't now, or will be a time when it isn't now. This 3D illusion we've been in, it's interesting that it just doesn't go zap and go away, but that it's fading away like this. It's really better, I think, in a way, to be able to make the adjustments more gently. Although things are accelerating so fast, it doesn't seem so terribly gentle these days. But with time fading away, see, we're such great creators is the thing, I guess. And so We prop things up by our belief, by pouring the energy of the I am into them, by placing our attention on them and our belief in them. And so that actually pours the energy of creation into them. And so even though they're false and not real, they get to temporarily at least seem to exist for a little bit longer, until we pull our belief out of them and watch them go splat. There was nothing there, you know, there's no truth in it to sustain it. Anything that has truth is unaffected, quite unaffected by our belief or non-belief. It really doesn't care, and it doesn't matter, because it is what it is, and it stands. And so, just like I say with the ETs, you know, cross them. Say no once in a while. See what happens. Pull yourself back. Pull your belief back and see what happens. Well, maybe it's good to do that with everything. I mean, it's very important to do that with our thoughts, to question every single one of them, not to believe them. It's okay to have them. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what a mind does. It's belief in them that's the problem, not that creates the problem for us. We're creators and we just don't know it. And we've been manipulated to be this way, but we're waking up, so all's fine. All's perfectly fine. It's a glorious cosmos into which we've been born, this physicality. It's so grand. I'm in love with the sun. When I started sun gazing, there was none of that. It was just, you know, this is what people say to do. It's a neat thing. Give it a try. And so I did. Back then I was pretty regular. If I determined to do something, I was pretty faithful with it. So sunrise, I wasn't so good at then, but sunset, oh boy, I was there. And even did it in the house because the mosquitoes were so bad, and I didn't have any kind of natural bug repellent back then, didn't want to use the chemicals. So I just stood in front of the picture window and the west-facing living room and just stared. And it grew over time. It was many months of doing that. And then pretty soon I made an arc from my heart to the sun to get a real connection, a real, well, a flow over that. And as I look back, I don't know exactly what happened. There were trips, there were journeys to the sun in consciousness, and some interesting experiences that way. But you know, experience isn't where it's at. It's the being, the beingness of it that is so much more crystal, so much more key to whatever. So it became very devotional, and I didn't understand it, but it didn't matter. It just felt that way. There was a love energy that I had to be there for that sunset, and the tears would just flow, and they were tears of joy and devotion. And the mind had no understanding, but it didn't matter. It was so strong and so powerful and so real that there was very little questioning of it. I mean, how can you understand some things? You just can't, right? Puppy, I'm recording. Hush. As if he understood, right? So there was that period. I don't know. Things morph, you know. There was a time where I kind of let it go, and life changes, and it's not so long, and I find myself up with the dawn all the time with great joy. And so then I've got the morning sun gazing and somewhat less of the evening. Things change. But what it is now, It's really unspeakable. There aren't any words that I can put on it. I can share a little bit, like this morning, for instance. Well, what it is it's love. Um, I never know what's going to flow through with barefoot coffee, but it's always beautiful. And the first thing is a joy and a gratitude and a connection with Gaia, and the trees and the plants and the bugs and the birds and the sun and the earth and everything. You know, there's just that joy that's there. It's like a flame. And you bask in that and you greet all of that. And then just gazing upon the sun, there's a devotion, there's a, I don't know, it's like an identity that's shared in some way. The blazingness of the sun is like a manifestation of the blazingness of your heart, of your soul. And I guess maybe in gazing on that without, it stirs that within. I don't know. Like I say, there aren't words for it. But it's very, very special. And I much more understand now the ancient peoples. They weren't so dumb in their devotion to the sun. They weren't so dumb at all. The way I read it, friends, we're the dumb ones. And so, you know, again, I don't suggest that everybody go out and stare at the noonday sun. This is a sunrise and sunset thing that you work yourself into slowly, getting your gaze accustomed to it. But Google it and check it out for yourself. I think if I had to try to define myself in terms of yoga, bhakti, you know, just love and devotion. Only it's not like it's an a this loving a that. It's just love that is. That's in the heart of everything. Greeting, love that is, that's in the heart of everything. And it's a sharing, and it's a song, and it's an intensity blazing. And, you know, you'll find odd, interesting things happen. A trip to the sun now and then, you never know what. This morning it was like my front teeth were buzzing, humming or something. It was like they were singing a song of devotion themselves. They just had to vibrate. It was so intense. So you never know. I'm probably a few rocks short of solid and sane, but I tell you, the water's fine. Come on in. Have a great day. Session with the sun. Wipe the tears off my face and try to look reasonable here and see what's to be said before I get off into this day, which for me is an unusual one. Hi. I pulled the camera back to give us so much of the wall in the hope that we'll have some rainbows passing through. I'm just coming in from my morning barefoot coffee. Kind of a joke, really. I mean, I surrendered a lot in coming into light and finding myself and who and where and what I really wanted. To have some business and financial dealings to take care of, and I'm not very good about that. I mean, you know, practical things, no, not too useful. Not too useful at all. Upon finding and discovering, well, there's a whole lot of that stuff I just didn't pick back up. And so, you don't find me a very